How's it going, guys? And I'm here with part two of your WrestleMania review. So, let's recap with part one first. Show was boring, uneventful for the most part, but they capped it off with a really good main event because it wasn't your traditional main event. It was a produced movie-like match with AJ Styles and The Undertaker. Biker Taker returned and kind of fused with the Phenom, and I really enjoyed it. We had Goldberg losing the title to Braun Strowman, and I wasn't crazy about that because Braun has had this seesaw type of career. Part one was kind of like what we expected. We had a nice little surprise at the end, as I called it, a movie magic mania moment. But let's get into part two. This is the final part of WrestleMania, and let's see how the other half of the show turned out. So we started off with, once again, Stephanie doing another intro. I don't understand something like with Stephanie. Does she actually think like she's liked, like she's a good representative? If there should ever be a person to stay behind the scenes and stay there, it would be her. Now, this is coming from someone that, used to actually really enjoy her work on TV. I liked her in the role of the GM. I liked her, in the McMahon-Helmsley faction side the heel Triple H in the year 2000. But that was many years ago. So now, whenever Stephanie gets on TV, it's always a cringeworthy moment. And I get it, she's trying to be the ambassador and say, hey, welcome to the show. We're supposed to feel like we're a part of some exclusive club. But she's just so annoying, it's almost impossible to put into words, even though I just did. So we start off with our first match with Charlotte defeating Rhea Ripley for the NXT Championship. And if you have been watching my Raw reviews leading up to this match, to this show, you know that I was constantly asking, how and why is Charlotte challenging for the NXT Championship? I did numerous examples. I said, say back in the day, like when Batista won the Royal Rumble, which Charlotte did. She won the Women's Rumble this year. Usually they would go right to, the world, champion of their respective brand, right? Can you imagine if Batista picked the OVW world champion? No, that would never happen. Because that wouldn't make any sense, because that's where he came from. That was developmental. He's on the main roster now. He's on the roster that travels the world, that has, events in Saudi Arabia. That, these are the guys that, get the interviews on the morning shows. I could go through all the different examples. It makes no sense to have a top-tier wrestler, a top-tier star, challenging for a world title that's in the developmental company. It is in the company, whatever you want to call it. It's the developmental part of the company. So we have Rhea Ripley coming out and challenging Charlotte, basically. Like, this doesn't make any sense. She's coming to Charlotte and, asking her to challenge for her title. Shouldn't it be the other way around if they were going to tell this story? Wouldn't it have made more sense to have Rhea Ripley win the Royal Rumble and then challenge Charlotte, because Charlotte's the big dog if Charlotte was the champion, but she's not the champion? I mean, what is this supposed to be? What type of story were they trying to tell? And the match wasn't bad. We had Charlotte working on Rhea's leg, but, just like all the rookies do, and even the more experienced people, like Seth Rollins, for example, she's selling the leg, and then all of a sudden it's like they forget that they're selling. And this is a huge, constant problem that I said, you know, sometimes it's okay to forget about it. You can say that they're running on adrenaline, but you have to tell that story. That's when it's up to the commentators to jump in like they did for Shawn Michaels and say, okay, this is why he's not selling, because he's got some adrenaline. But usually then the heel would go right back to the leg and remind that wrestler that your leg is damaged. But here, you know, it's just like, it's amateur hour, basically. And Charlotte wins the title here, gets her to tap out to the figure eight. And like, okay, so this, I'm fine with this result. I'm not a big fan of Rhea Ripley. You know, Rhea matches Charlotte as far as height goes, so I understand why people were saying, you know, that it was a dream match from that perspective. But a dream match from any other perspective, like this is a match that we needed to see, that had to happen, that you lay awake at night thinking about this match. No, it simply was not that at all. It was a competent match. It was enjoyable. I wasn't seriously bored. It was a long match. It was even longer than that opening tag match at the previous night for the first part of Mania. Strangely enough, it was like triple or quadruple the length of Cringy Lynch's match, leading me to believe that there was something wrong there. Like, Shayna Baszler and Becky like wrestled for like less than 10 minutes, I believe. I was kind of sitting back and thinking about it during the length of this match, and I was like, that one was really short. Like, was there a problem there? You know, did Becky get injured, or maybe was Becky feeling sick, or maybe Shayna was? I don't know, you know, given this situation. So this was way too long, but like I said, it was okay. I wasn't seriously bad. Like, I wasn't like, oh, you know, or anything like that. I mean, it was okay. But now it's like, where do they go from here? Is Charlotte now going to be on NXT? Is Ric Flair's daughter? Is this pedigree athlete? Is she going to be on NXT? Is it going to be like a Finn Balor story? Like, oh, you've won all the world championships. You know, you've had all the fame and the glory. You've traveled the world. Now you're in NXT. And they're going to sell this as like, oh, now NXT's got more star power. Does anyone but me realize that this is going backwards? Does it make any sense to anyone that a top-notch star who's like won, like, what is it, 10 times she's won the women's championship? Now she's going to win the lesser than championship. And I know people are going to try to sell it. I know that's what they want to do. They don't want to make like NXT as FCW or OVW. They want to make like it's the equivalent. Like, these young Turks are taking over, you know, like that, kind of like the story they tried telling at Survivor Series, albeit quite poorly. I know that's what they're trying to say, like, oh, these are equals, but they're not. We all know it's developmental. At least those that have a brain and can analyze the situation objectively. Aleister Black defeated Lashley, and okay, so you know, here's the thing about this match. Lashley was just sick. We had to have this match. We had to, you know, we couldn't have booked anyone else. So we have to have, you know, Lashley get in this match. And what for? So he could job out to Aleister Black? First of all, it's like they're having Black wrestle like jobbers. Then he gets a big win over AJ Styles. Then it's back to jobbers again. And okay, you can, you know, try to sell the argument that, of course, given the situation, they didn't really have much of a chance, much of a choice. But like, you know, here's Lashley and just losing again. Like, I don't know how. It must be that they're punishing him for his time in Impact, because how could Vince McMahon be looking at Lashley and saying that this guy is not the world champion, that this guy is not a main eventer? How is it that this is also a WrestleMania match? Like, first of all, they had the whole entire roster there, right? They had most of the main people there, most of the main players besides those who got sick. And not all of them were main players, like Dana Brooke, for example. So you have, basically the whole roster at your disposal. So why is such a random match being booked on the show? I mean, if McMahon's going to be, maniacal enough to actually put this show on, why is this on here, honestly? And we could just not have it, and then the show could be short, and we could be over and done with it. Because if that's what McMahon wants to do, and he just wanted to be over and done with WrestleMania, then why even put these guys out there and put them at risk just to have this type of match? So Lana tells Lashley she doesn't want him to finish off Aleister with the Dominator, to go for the spear. This gives time for Black to recover and hit the Black Mass, and everyone's basically going to forget about this match. We had Bayley and Sasha backstage cutting a promo. And, every single time that we get Bayley in there, with the promo and the interview, it's always just comes apart in shambles at the end of it. And here we go again. Here's the teaser. Is Sasha and Bayley gonna turn on each other because it's over the title? Like, how many times are we gonna tell this story? First they do the anger management, they turn on each other, they get back together, they turn on each other. Like, do not tell this story again. Please, I am so sick and tired of this. First, Sasha's a heel, then she's a face, and then she's a heel again, then they're both faces, and then Sasha turns heel, and therefore, because Bayley is a heel, Sasha is now a heel as well. Like, let's stop this storytelling that's all over the place, because first of all, these two, I've never seen two individuals push so far that they're this blatantly bad. At least, there could be people that I don't really care for, but I understand why they put them in those spots. I've talked about it, like with Rusev and Alberto Del Rio. I didn't really necessarily like those guys, but they were talented, I would admit. There was just something in me where I was like, I just don't really like these guys, but I get it. I see the star power, and it's just a personal preference thing, so I wasn't going to go all out and bash them. But here, we could clearly see that these are two stars that should have never made it out of developmental. They're really bad with their promos. It's wooden acting. First of all, when they're in the ring, it's nothing even that great. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are not two premier talents. Like, from any perspective that you look at it, from any attribute. This is not, what you'd expect from people being on WrestleMania. And how about Bayley? Interview over. Like, okay, there was no part in that interview really where it got controversial or heated, or there was no reason for Bayley to get like miffed. And the thing is, she doesn't even display that emotion of being miffed or angry well. It's just like, she's just like, interview over. And that haircut, like, I'm just telling you guys, this should be the gimmick. She's a total Karen now. Like I said, she looks like she wants to speak to the manager. I mean, I don't know who told her to go for that hairstyle. I mean, but, if we needed another reason, or if I'll speak for myself, because maybe some of you like Bayley, how and why would they tell her to get that haircut? Why did I need another reason to dislike Bayley? She's already unattractive enough. There's already no redeeming qualities about her. Bad promos, below average wrestler. Do I really need to have another reason not to like her? But somehow I'm giving another reason. They're giving her this ridiculous Karen style haircut. You could say what you want about this, but, it's like she's the one on TV, folks. But see, so we got, Kayla, the interviewer, is asking Sasha, so are you going to go after the title in this match? Is this going to drive a wedge between? She's like, you'll have to watch and see. Well, I guess we will, but we could kind of expect more of the same. And spoiler alert there, Otis defeated Ziggler. This was a fairly enjoyable match. I thought that they kind of capped the story off well. Sonya Deville comes out with Ziggler. So let's do a little recap because, I didn't review SmackDown, because by the time, I got home from work on Saturday, I was basically saying to myself, by the time I worked out, it was time for Mania, and Mania was already done, and so I already had recorded the review the very next day on Sunday. So I just decided, let's forego the SmackDown review. Let's forego all that and just go right to Mania, because, like, who even wanted to talk about SmackDown? There was nothing really to talk about on SmackDown except really this. This was probably the only thing, and the John Cena segment, but, we'll get to that when I talk about that match. But the SmackDown review is not going to happen, obviously, at this point, because there's no reason to go back in time. I don't think anyone's really... Are you guys, like, really want the SmackDown review? I don't think so. I really am not going to waste my time putting that together and sitting here and talking about a show that's kind of irrelevant right now. So we'll just, carry on as we are. So we had this hacker thing, and I don't know if I missed something, but this hacker appears on the screen on SmackDown and says, I told you the truth was going to be heard. You told us? When did you tell us? Was this on WWE.com? Was this on some random Twitter page? Because I didn't see anything. But there was a match between Dolph Ziggler and Tucker on SmackDown. Mandy runs out and tells Ziggler to stop being so aggressive. Otis comes out to save him. This hacker guy in a hoodie, you can't see his face. The screen starts going all crazy and starts digitizing. And then we see a clip of Sonya conspiring with Dolph Ziggler. She sends some text to Mandy Rose. Then she deletes those texts so Mandy can't see it on her phone. And that's how the whole thing happened with Dolph Ziggler at the restaurant. And, I was like, okay, I will give them this. It's not like, a super in-depth story, but I was like, okay, this is fine with me. I was like, at least they explained it. I kind of felt like they really didn't have this from the beginning. Now I think that they have a lot of downtime. I think creative is actually like saying like, oh, maybe we should actually start writing some stories. And this is the thing, like, I will give them credit for this. This was not a little bad explanation that they made. It kind of made sense, sort of, until I start thinking about it more, but I didn't really start analyzing it too heavily. But from the offset, I said, okay, at least they're trying to tell a little bit of a story there. And so, Mandy storms off, Sonya starts apologizing. So we have this match, and Sonya distracts Otis, and Ziggler gets in a low blow, but then Mandy comes out and low blows Ziggler. Then you've got Otis doing his finisher. What is it called? The centipede or whatever, and ends up getting the victory. And then he ends up getting Mandy in his arms, kissing her, and like, okay, that was a pretty good story that they told there. This was not consistently well told up to this point, but they did a decent job at least explaining, the train wreck of the storyline and trying to kind of put a nice little bow on it. So it was good for what it was. And actually the match was pretty decent, you know what I'm saying? It was very nice, like I said, on this show, that some of these matches were not flipping all over the place. It didn't have to be 1,000 different high spots. Two competent talents. I really like Otis. Otis really does remind me of Chris Farley. So, I didn't really have a problem with this match, and I enjoyed the little bit of the story that they did tell. Edge defeated Orton in the Falls Count Anywhere match. And I enjoyed this match. It was the match that I was looking most forward to on the show. Did it end up being my favorite match of the entire Mania? No, it did not. And here okay, so what they did show was good. I enjoyed it. The match starts off early in the ring. Orton comes in, draped in a hoodie, and hits a RKO out of nowhere. Edge hits an early spear, and then they go in the back, and this match was very long. It was too long. It was dragged out. And, okay, so they didn't really do anything. I will say this. They didn't really do anything too crazy where it's like the match should have ended 1,000 times, because these two guys are pros. But I know that they kind of wanted to get a nice big epic match out of this, and it was a good match. But honestly, there's no reason why this match couldn't have been 15 or 20 minutes. Wade Keller had this match recorded at 36 minutes. That was excessive. And it really was. I know, I enjoyed that they toured the building, they fought in the boardroom, they fought in the parking lot, they fought in the gym. There was a lot of nice little parts and settings in this, and I liked how but it was a bit too much. It got to the point where, like, okay, well, we've already, get the theme here. You're going around in the building, you're going around in the hallways, and anything that reminds me of the great Halftime Heat, episode, the match where The Rock and Mankind battled in the back in the empty arena. It was kind of like that. It was kind of like that, I liked, I really liked that match, and I like what they did with this one. And it kind of gave me those types of vibes of classic Attitude Era, but it went on for way too long. Edge ends up getting the concerto on top of a tractor trailer and pins Orton for the win. Over, at this point I was like, thank God it's over. I enjoyed that, but it was going on for way too long. It was this was the definition of a dragged out match where they had something good, but they just went a little bit too much. And I know that sounds like, okay, well, you like the match, so why are you complaining? It was too long. Like I'm saying, there's no reason why this Mania needed to stretch itself to the length that it was at. If like I said, if you don't have a reason for the show to be as long as it is, then there's no reason why we need to, like, abide by the strict thing. Like, each part has to be 3.5 hours. There's no reason they have to abide by a strict time frame when it's on the network. I mean, they can make this stuff as long as they want or as short as they want. They can make it last for 30 minutes if they want. So, and I get that. That's why the matches do tend to go a bit long, because they don't need to, like, be, responsible for fulfilling a deal and getting the show off the air a few minutes early like they used to. Like, pay-per-views used to be 2 hours and 45 minutes the most. Maybe 2 hours and 40 minutes. It wouldn't even hit the 3-hour mark most of the time. So with that in mind, now that they're on the network, they go completely over. And this is Mania anyway. So, but, why can't Mania be 4 hours? Because this is what happens. We have a match that's good that could have been excellent had it not just been so dragged out. And they got to the point quicker. Also, it being more of a sense of urgency. These two guys are having a grudge match and they want to try to end it as quickly as possible and get that big blow in that's going to end it. When you drag it out this long, it kind of like loses its luster after a while. And that's the luster started fading because it was like one thing after another. They can only throw themselves into so many different things, until it gets tiresome. And that's the point that they reached. Gronk ended up winning the belt. This had to be like the worst host ever. Like, they barely showed him even during the first part. Gronkowski was barely there. So Gronkowski climbs up on top of a structure. I think it was kind of like what Elias fell off of on SmackDown with Corbin. He does this trust fall, falls onto all the 24/7 guys that were chasing Mojo, and now Gronk is your 24/7 champion. So, that's the most we're going to get out of a Gronk WrestleMania appearance. There's not going to be any big involvement in any match because, I don't know, that would have been too epic. That would have been too meaningful. Just give him the 24/7 championship and be on your way. I don't know. Why do I feel like there could have been some big, moment here? Had they built up Mojo or Riddick Moss, to this extent. First of all, where is Riddick Moss during this? He just gets a little, a little segment on WWE.com and on their YouTube page where he loses the belt to R-Truth in his own neighborhood. And he's nowhere to be seen, like no interest in getting the belt back. I don't know if he was in that little crowd of stars. It kind of looked like, I don't know who were those No Way Jose's, like conga line people. It kind of looked that way. Anyway, Gronk celebrates, runs off. That's about it. The Street Profits defeated Angel Garza and Austin Theory. And I've got a feeling we're probably not even going to see Austin Theory after this anymore. This was just a complete train wreck. And this is like First of all, let me tell you something. The Street Profits is probably one of the worst tag teams I've seen come through in quite some time. First of all, I feel nothing when these guys come out or when they wrestle. It's just... I don't like either guy. And I feel like since Crime Time, was out, these are teams like just like Private Party. They're trying so hard to be the hip, cool, urban team, and like this team is just, they're so cringeworthy, and they just look like two goofs. They really do. They look like two goofs, with the solo cups and everything. It just, come on, man, I don't know who likes this team. I don't know, like, after they did the, we got the smoke, and no one in the crowd was going for it. Why they decide, the crowd's not responding to these guys. Let's push them. Like, why? Like, when the smarts are not even, you're trying to cater to these people, and no one is interested in these guys. This is who you go with for your tag champs, and this is an example, again, where, like, okay, guys, who wants to see this match? Like, first of all, Garza and Theory. Now you're really reaching. Like, okay, I know you're trying to cater to the smarts, but Austin Theory is an NXT guy that we've never even seen before. There's no explanation why he's even teaming with Garza. And we end up having this match. And, like, first of all, having Montez always fly off with the plancha and always hitting his partner every single time makes him look like an idiot. I mean, it's okay once in a while. It's not like that spot hasn't been done before in the past. But every single time, it makes him look like a moron. Like, he has no accuracy. Like, this guy would just take out his partner, doesn't even check on him. It's just, like, it's the most ludicrous and ridiculous thing. Like, I look at this match and I see this is the state of current wrestling and why I hate it so much. It's because of goofs like this. Bayley defeated Sasha, Tamina, Lacey, and Naomi. Sasha and Bayley start arguing during this. They bring back Tamina only to have her be the first one eliminated, by the way. Everyone, like, dog paddles on top of her. She gets eliminated. Then we have, like I said, that moment where it looks like, ooh, Bayley and Sasha are going to have some tension. But then Sasha comes out again after being eliminated and helps Bayley beat Lacey. And, okay. And then you've got Bayley after the match. And here's, like, a few things. Like, Lacey Evans, like, this is it. There's no way after this that she's going to come back and have a title match. They just basically bury every single woman in there. And for what? For Bayley? This is their golden goose here? And they have her just constantly saying, you can't touch me. You can't touch me. Like, oh my God, she's so awful. I don't know what it is. Like, are they purposely making her go out there and make a fool out of herself? I don't know. They have her keeping the title for a while. They keep, showcasing her prominently on the show, as prominently as she could possibly be. But they're giving her a lot of TV time to do what she does, and what she does is absolutely horrible. Let's move on. We've got the Fiend defeating John Cena in the Firefly Funhouse match. And this is like a match that I had to kind of think about for a little bit after seeing it, because it was really odd what they did. And one part I didn't even understand, and it was really super random, but pretty much this is what it is. Cena comes to the ring. They cut to a video of Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse setting. He enters a door, and it says on it, "All ye who enter, all ye who exit here," like says, "may not return," or whatever it said on there. So he goes in. Cena gets transported into that world, and he goes into the door as well. And then we see that Cena then ends up being in his classic attire. Then they show the clip of Kurt Angle and his introduction and everything. And every time he tries to go for the slap, and it's Bray Wyatt and Kurt Angle's place, and they kind of cut the promo again. And it was really cool seeing Cena in his old gear. And Bray is making fun of him and saying, "Oh, no wonder you almost got fired." So they tried to take advantage of that work shoot promo. I kind of like it because they put that documentary out there with the Ruthless Aggression documentary series. So now a few more people know that story. Then they skip to the rapping gimmick, and they start jumping around and doing some weird skits. Then they go to like a Saturday night's main event type of thing and try to do an old 80s style wrestling promo. And then they got really random with it, and then did like an NWO Eric Bischoff promo of him introducing Hogan. That part felt a little bit too random to me, that last one. I mean, it was funny. We had Cena coming out and doing the air guitar like Hogan. And then the Fiend just kind of gets transported in, hits the Sister Abigail, puts on the mandible claw, and Bray Wyatt is shown counting to 3. Altogether, this was a really well edited, freaky deaky, heavily produced video. It did not feel as satisfying, nowhere near as satisfying as AJ and Taker. Didn't have that same cinematic appeal. This was more like a nice entertaining segment where they got creative and they thought of a few different things, and having Bray kind of torture Cena with his past and kind of make fun of him and let Cena kind of get creative as well. And they were doing some funny bits. We see Cena doing so many curls that he can't even lift his arms to attack Wyatt. So they did get really creative, and I gotta, give it credit. The people on the dirt sheets, I see Brian Alvarez is going crazy. He hates the match and everything. I saw but surprisingly, Wade Keller actually liked it. So I guess some of these dirt sheet guys are, kind of getting some taste finally. But I really liked what I saw here. It definitely went down a lot different than I thought. Like, again, I thought that this was going to be a match inside the Firefly Funhouse setting. They were going to be throwing each other into the walls and all that. But I was happy with this. I like these produced things that they're doing. It really is entertaining. It's something different. I'm a bit surprised that they didn't try to jump on this soon. They tried to do it very early on, trying to copy the Matt Hardy thing. Remember when they had the New Day go into the Wyatt compound, and it was just kind of lame. There was not really a whole lot to it. It was very quick and over with in no time, and they made it way too hokey. These two things, and I was very surprised that they actually did 2 of these on both nights. Obviously, the Taker thing was a lot stronger because that just had a more consistent story to it. And it was a bit easier to follow. This was just going to be as weird as they could possibly do. They tried to throw as many different ideas in it as possible, even if something like the NWO segment was super random and didn't really quite fit. That kind of just seemed like something that Wyatt and Cena just wanted to copy and do for fun. And it kind of was acceptable because it was in the whole bizarre world, but I liked it. I know a lot of people don't. I saw, some of my friends on Facebook here from YouTube talking, and they didn't really care for it, but I gotta say, it was creative. They put effort into it. It was enjoyable. I was not bored, and therefore, I have to say that I liked it. I'd be lying to say if I didn't. I think that people could probably at least say that you weren't bored during it. You couldn't really be bored during this because it was so much going on, and they kept throwing different things at you from different angles. And I like that look into Cena's past, like how Cena tried to, talk about Wyatt, and now Wyatt's kind of throwing all this at Cena and making him like look at himself. And anyway, let's move on to the final match, and it was Drew McIntyre defeating Brock Lesnar in like less than 5 minutes. Now, here's the thing. I would not have a problem with this style of match. So, this was the match, basically. We had Brock Lesnar hitting a few Germans. First, we started off with a Claymore. Brock gets up. And then, first of all, I don't know what it is, but they were doing a lot of this. Hitting the finishers right from the start, and they've been doing this the last few years. It's good, it's shocking, and I know they don't do it often, but like every single Mania, I feel like this is like guaranteed that the Brock Lesnar match is going to start off with a finisher. I'm just saying a bit more variety, because now we're kind of expecting it every single time it like starts off with a finisher. There's a reason why it's called the finisher. Not to start it off. I know, it's supposed to be shocking. Oh, he's starting off the match with something he's supposed to end it with. But then we've got Brock doing, a few Germans that look pretty brutal to Drew. Then he picks him up. There's 3 F5s. The first F5 is a 1 count. Then a 2 count. Then a near fall. And then Drew gets another Claymore in on him, and I don't know how many he ended up hitting, maybe like 2 more, and then ends up getting the pin. Now, the multiple finishers, this is the thing about this. They just did it the night before with Braun Strowman beating Goldberg. If it was maybe just Drew and Brock doing this, then I'd be fine. But they just did it. They just did it. And they were also doing it with Goldberg and The Fiend. The finishers right off the bat. Okay, this is getting a bit tiresome. I'm sorry to say, but I can't really just say okay, it was short, it was action-packed. No, I'm kind of getting sick of them doing this style, because it really does cheapen the finishers. They're hitting 4 or 5, F5s, and then, I get it, but it, after seeing Seth Rollins and The Fiend and all this up to this point, I'm just thinking in my mind, I'm maybe not listing every single example, but every single Mania, they had Roman Reigns and Brock from a few years ago, 1,000 different finishers. It gets to a point where it looks ridiculous. They're booking the match the same exact way. Kick out, kick out, kick out. The other guy hits his finisher a few times, and then he ends up getting the win. And there's not really a lot else in between. When you think about it, what moves did you have in this match? And I know we don't rate these matches with moves. There's a lot more to it than that. But, it's F5, 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 German, Claymore, and then it's done. Sorry, but, there should be a little bit more to it than that if we're going to have a match. And like I said, it would have been fine if this was, presented in an original way. But you just did this the night before. You can't have the same exact thing happen twice. You know what that's called? That's called being repetitive. That's called being uncreative. You just showed us something very creative, just the match right before it. Where's that creative? See, this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that everything has to be shot like a movie now going forward and being produced, but we know that you are creative. I don't know if it's Borash who's doing that or who it is, but someone is being creative there. I would really suggest whoever it is that is coming up with those ideas be put at the forefront of creative, because obviously whoever's responsible for that knows what they're doing and knows how to entertain and knows how to be creative and different. Because when I'm looking at Bray and Cena versus this, and everything else on the show, or I'm looking at a tag match like with the Street Profits, those things are like so much on a different level. Like it's boredom versus, you know, entrancement and entertainment, and you know, there shouldn't be such a clear you know, contrast like that. Like, I'm saying, why can't everything on the show be entertaining in its own way? Obviously, when they watch that and they watch something else, they know that there's a clear difference in quality there. So, you know, like I said, it's a good, you know, I'm happy Drew's finally won the title. It's really depressing that it had to be in front of nobody. But, you know, this is just a disappointing way to win it. I don't know why they feel like at Mania they have to do these like strictly finisher matches. It doesn't really feel as epic as it was. Somebody pointed out in my comments that, you know, this is how they booked Goldberg and Lesnar at Mania, but even that was done more. They moved around the ring a bit more, you know, but it's all just finishers now. And it's not like they haven't already cheapened the finishers thanks to all the indie guys who are kicking out of every single thing every 2 seconds. And, you know, Seth Rollins kind of really popularized that, you know. So there you go, guys. There's your Mania review. Which part did I enjoy more? That's kind of hard to say. You know, like overall, I mean, I guess I would say part 1 due to Taker and AJ. You know, it's really kind of hard to say. I mean, I did like Edge and Orton, Cena, and The Fiend. Like I said, overall, you know, not having a crowd there, it felt really cheap. It was, you know, boring and lifeless and in a lot of parts. You know, but there was some effort here. The talent, obviously, you know, I don't want to say they did the best they could, but, you know, they did a good job. They did their jobs and they tried their hardest under the given circumstances, I guess you can say. So, you know, it was, like I said, it was nice with part 1 and part 2 that there was some creative produced material, that they tried some different things. Not enough. Like I said, especially that this was taped and I know they had to rush this out. But days before they did have time to tinker, they should have, you know, made this show a bit more solid. Like, if they had enough know-how to produce these 2 segments, then why couldn't everything else also have a different feel to it? Like, this really could have been a really special Mania. And we did have some little moments in there, but, you know, when you've got a 6.5 hour show, almost, was 7 hours combined? I expect a lot more than just 2, you know, memorable segments, you know. Okay, there were a few decent matches thrown through, you know, in it. Like, I'm saying, there was, you know, Edge and Orton. You had Otis and Ziggler, which was entertaining. It wasn't all bad. It wasn't all terrible. It wasn't all cringe. But there was quite a bit of cringe, and there was quite a bit of terribleness. So, with that said, you know, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the review. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post on my new videos. And, oh, before we end it, like, do they really think that they're doing Money in the Bank? They honestly advertised Money in the Bank on this show. And I'm like, guys, it's not happening. You're not going to be doing Money in the Bank. There's not going to be a May pay-per-view. And I even read on, what was it, on Wrestling Inc., that, like, they even removed it off their events page. But here they are advertising it, acting like everything is just fine. And then the funny thing is then they do the beer commercial for Modelo, and then they actually say why they're in this situation. Like, they said, we're raising money for, you know, and I just found that hilarious. Like, WWE will air a commercial with it being said, but they won't say it themselves. Well, anyway, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.